In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, that Muhammad is his messenger. Peace, family. Welcome once more to Afternotes. You know, that humble program. We try to remind you of the life-giving, life-saving teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, as they have been given to us by his star student, the Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan. On behalf of Brother Carlos Muhammad, our esteemed guests, we thank you for tuning in, our listening audience. And we, brother has been on the move. You might call this Muhammad's return. Brother, you've been to Chicago, you've been to Detroit, you've been to Medina, you've even been to Mecca. Welcome home. So if you would just quickly share with us what's going on in your life.
Well, first and foremost, assalamu alaikum, everyone. And of course, always great to be with my brother and friend, Brother Donald Muhammad, and just chopping it up and doing the best that we can with inviting you to what we call righteous and wholesome dialogue that can be used to extend the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad through his minister to our people. But I'm happy to be alive, happy to be back home, like you said, coming back in the middle part of January from Umrah, where I was blessed to visit the two holy cities of Medina, the city of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and of course the holy city of Mecca itself, to perform the rites of Umrah, or what is considered to be Mana Hajj. And then literally coming right off of that into Detroit.
Yes, sir.
Because even though there was a little break in our work ethic, like you say, we be on the move. Everything just pretty much runs together. And so it was a blessing to be able to come right to our Savior's Day convention and once again be with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as we were celebrating our 39th Savior's Day in the rebuilding of the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad under his minister, and just to see all of the believers and everyone once again for Savior's Day has been tremendous. But always good to be back home at number 6 now.
Always good to have you back home.
Yes, sir.
And listen, real quickly, because we always want to know at the top, how is the minister doing? I mean, I'm looking at the man myself. He has a grueling schedule. He does Savior's Day, he comes back the following week, and then he shares with us some of his challenges. So how's he doing?
Well, when we left him in Chicago, of course, in the natural element, he was very exhausted just from coming out of the week before in Detroit, but then coming back and Allah blessing him with the spirit and the strength to stand up and continue with part 2 of his Savior's Day message. The minister was in very good spirits. He was very thankful to Allah for our presence that day in the jam-packed Mosque Mariam, as well as all throughout the world, but definitely in America, the mosque and the believers that came out. And in Detroit, the minister was very open about some of the challenges that he has had over the years, but he said he's always worked through his pain and has never missed a beat. But just being open where he was at that time. They had to prepare this pretty chair for him to sit in Detroit, but God blessed him to be able to stand even though he had some tears in his knees. But God blessed him with the strength. And that's the power of the will. The minister loves us so much, and he is dedicated to the mission that God has given him, that he's not going to allow anything to get in the way of delivering that clear message to the people.
Absolutely. And we're asking you, family, to keep the Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan in your prayers. We're going to jump right into it, just Brother Carlos. We were recently out at one of the institutions, and on the way out, one of the officers wanted a copy of our newspaper, The Final Call. And he was kind of taken aback when he saw this cover.
Come on now.
Jesus is the key. He felt it, I guess, a little ironic that the Muslims would talk about Jesus being the key. Please elaborate.
Well, any of us that have become members of the Nation of Islam and have declared our own and finding out that we are righteous Muslims, first and foremost, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us an understanding that a real Muslim is a real Christian and a real Christian is a real Muslim. These principles that those of us that have been the recipients of messages from prophets, whether it be Moses, whether it be Jesus or Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, we make no distinctions among them, and they're all from the Almighty. And it is the principles that they taught that have allowed us to enjoy a better way of life. And so don't be shocked to our Christian family if by now, after 43 years
Right.
of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan rebuilding this work, most of those early years, the churches were opened up. He went into churches, and throughout the years, he has shown that there's absolute unity between the righteous family of our Christian family, the Muslims, as well as our Hebrew families, all the children of Abraham. But if you're still shocked, know and understand that there's none of us that can be Muslims and not see the value, the honor, the prestige, and the understanding of what Jesus means to God and what Jesus means to us as believers.
I think I've heard the minister say that you can't even be a real Muslim if you don't accept Jesus.
Oh, absolutely.
How about if we tie this in? We deal with, pardon me for using that phrase, we deal with, but we study the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. How does his teaching or his life coincide with the life of Jesus?
Well, one of the biggest things in the history of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the revelation of the Holy Quran is that the Muslims were suffering great persecution throughout that 23-year period of revelation. And so the Prophet, peace be upon him, at a certain point had ordered some of his companions and some of the followers to seek refuge under an Abyssinian king, Negus, in Ethiopia, and that he was given the revelation from Allah that the Muslims could find refuge there. And when the companions and some of the followers got there and conveyed the Prophet, peace be upon him's message to the king was somewhat, a little taken back, and he was trying to figure out, what is this Islam? What is that, Muslims, and who is this Muhammad, peace be upon him? And one of the companions began to recite some of the chapter 19 of the Quran, Surah Al-Maryam. And when the king heard the beautiful verses of the Quran being recited, talking about Jesus and his mother Mary, that opened up his heart to know that these were sincere, and that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was absolutely a prophet of God. So that's some of the beauty of showing you the strength between true Muslims and true Christians.
Praise be to Allah.
Yes, sir.
Now, for those who are still, you made mention of people still being a little confused about some things, and I'm glad you used the word extend. We can't rewrite these teachings. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad has laid down the foundation. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan keeps that teaching alive, and all we can do is try to help extend this to our people to help give the dead life. There's a man that some call a mystery man. His name is Master Fard Muhammad, and there are some who still have a fuzzy understanding of this man. Could you talk about him a little bit?
Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his minister are the key to unlocking what we make to be the mystery. It's no mystery that Master Fard Muhammad actually came among us starting in July 4th, 1930, in terms of making himself known, though the Honorable Elijah Muhammad revealed to us that Master Fard Muhammad had been coming in and out of America for 20 years prior. But the result of this man coming to Detroit, Michigan, and working among our people, and then raising the Honorable Elijah Muhammad from the midst of our people in Detroit, is the evidence that if the third grade backwoods educated man, Elijah Muhammad, said that he got what he taught and teaches from Master W.D. Fard Muhammad, and it is that teaching from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, absent, the physical absence of Master Fard Muhammad, that raised up a mass of black people, cleaned them up, made them productive. We should know and understand that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad absolutely did not fabricate that he met with a man. Isn't it beautiful that a man could do those kind of works, visible works among the people for 44 years, yet he himself never took credit. He always said he gave honor to Allah, who came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, to whom praises are due forever. And so that continued with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in the rebuilding of the Nation of Islam. The minister did something that seemed to be impossible, to revive the Nation of Islam that had fallen and was gone and had almost disappeared, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad being attempted to be written out of history, the minister began to work, and he kind of reminded us again that during that phase, he would look at a picture of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad at the bottom of his steps, and he would look at it and he would talk to it, and say, dear apostle, you didn't leave me anything. I worked hard. And he said one day he walked down the steps and he looked at the picture and laughed, and he said, you know what? You left me everything. You left me the word. So one man with the word revives the work of his teacher and brings back to the forefront of how this divine work got started in 1930 by lifting up the quote-unquote mystery man, Master Fard Muhammad. And so if you want to know whether or not Master Fard Muhammad is real, just take a look at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, his works, and the extension of him and his beloved leader, our beloved leader and teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
No doubt. I'm thinking back, just a few days ago, we came out of what they call Black History Month, and it seems like there's a concerted effort to drive home I Have a Dream by Dr. King. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like he's the only leader that they want to talk about, and they even don't talk about him to the extent of what he himself taught towards the end of his life. Mm-hmm. Why do you think they spend so much time on Dr. King, and why is there so little said about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan or his teacher?
Well, I'll start first by saying Dr. King in the modern age, especially for the last 20 years in particular, would not have any relevance in terms of the new generation had not Minister Farrakhan been in the forefront of showing you and showing us the value of Dr. King, especially during the anniversary of the Million Man March in 2015, which we notably call 10-10-15 or the Justice or Else movement. It was Minister Farrakhan showing us through the dedicated work and the evolution of Dr. King that Dr. King was a man that, yes, said that he had a dream, but he realized that that dream had become a nightmare, and that he realized that unless we took it into our own hands, mm-hmm. our economic development, that we would continue to be in poverty, and that there was a concerted effort by the enemy to keep black people unequal and keep us in abject poverty. And so it is Minister Farrakhan that has caused even those of us that may have differed with Dr. King's philosophy to see the value in our brother and what he means to this modern time. But always remember, mm-hmm. it's easy for the enemy to attempt to dig up and resurrect black leaders who they hated when they were alive, right. And now try to use them against the living fulfillment, yes. of those great worthies, who is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And that's why a few Savior's Days ago, the minister put all of those black leaders from Frederick Douglass to Harriet Tubman to Marcus Garvey and Dr. King, Malcolm X, Brother Khaled, and many others on a big banner behind him to show, mm-hmm. I'm not standing here in and of myself. I am a part of the fulfillment of all of these great leaders that have come down throughout time.
Praise be to Allah. Brother, we got to get back to you for a minute. If you would, I know it's a lot involved with it, but could you share just a little bit about what it felt like traveling over to the holy cities?
Well, I can tell you that what we call the precincts, and whenever you have a precinct, it's a designated area. And so there are two holy precincts in Saudi Arabia, one being Medina, the city of the Prophet, peace be upon him, where he is buried and his masjid is, as well as the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca, where the Kaaba is, that was set up by Prophet Ibrahim or Abraham and Ishmael, peace be upon them, and has become the center of the focus of the Muslims 5 times a day for our obligatory prayers. So these two holy precincts have value in terms of space for worship.
Yes, sir.
Those two cities revolve around worship. And so to be in these two places, most notably Medina, to be in a place where I, for the first time in my life, knowing life, what felt totally 100% free and clear of distraction, free and clear of a society of mayhem, and to really focus on worship to the point, not just for the sake of worship, but where I had a cleansing of the soul. And so this is the beauty of why Muslims are encouraged to visit those two cities, visit the holy city of Mecca at least once in a lifetime to perform Hajj or pilgrimage, but you cannot go to Mecca and not go to the city of the Prophet, because that is significant in our lives as Muslims. And I can tell you that the experience was great, but I'm not disillusioned. These are places to go to refresh. And my leader and teacher told me that you can only get from Mecca what you take there. So if you think you're going to go to Mecca and become ultra righteous, but yet you did not take any form of righteousness with you before you went, then you're disillusioned. If you went to Medina expecting a magic wand and magic dust to be sprinkled on you and make you a better Muslim, it does not exist. It means that we go there to focus so that we can generate the power to go back where we live at and produce the very thing that we just left, a model community where we can all live together in peace. And that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his minister have already laid and are building a foundation for here in America.
Praise be to Allah. Two final questions. First, I heard you make mention of when you put on the garb, there was a particular response from the people, but then when you showed up in a suit and bow tie, there was another response.
Yeah. Well, in the Ihram garment itself, as men, when we're making Umrah or Hajj, we put on these two seamless white garments, and that puts us all on the same footing. We're all dressed the same. There is no comparison of who. And so when you're in that state, it's beautiful because there's no competition. Because we do come from different ethnic backgrounds that has different cultural dress. And just being in wherever you come from, people look at how you dress and what you got on and labels and tags. But in the Ihram, there's none of that.
Yes, sir.
And you're free to focus on the rights of what you're there to do. However, we are instructed that once we're finished doing the rites, then you should put on your garments, what you normally wear. And in our culture of the Nation of Islam from the West, our cultural dress as men is normally a suit and tie, and most notably the bow tie. And I did that, and Brother John did that, and we went out. But when we had on our cultural garment, it was clear that the leadership and the example of Minister Farrakhan and him making friends for us all over the world came out in full run with our Palestinian brothers, our brothers from Pakistan, our family from Malaysia and Indonesia, black brothers, original brothers from Australia and Africa. They showed us so much respect and so much honor and was very concerned about the Honorable Minister and how he was doing. And so it felt great to be in the birthplace of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and Master Fard Muhammad, and being representatives of all the Muhammads in Mecca and be honored in the way that they did because of the great work of our leader and teacher.
Brother, we thank you because you represent the minister well, and we're going to close out with this final question. You made mention in the beginning, Jesus is the key from the minister himself. That was part one, Savior's Day. He came back, and you find in the most current edition of the Final Call, he's the key, part two. Now, you as his student and his rep here in the city of Baltimore, last Sunday you did part one, and inshallah, God willing, this coming Sunday, you're going to go into part two of Jesus is the Key. For those who didn't get a chance to be here, or those who will strive to come here this Sunday, kind of give us a preview on what you're talking about.
Well, we just want to continue to lay out which, I don't want to say it's already known because it's only known to those who know.
Okay.
But there are so many more that may not know, and that's why we have to continue to be consistent in teaching the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that we say are the life-giving, life-saving teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And it is through Minister Farrakhan's example of opening up our spiritually blind eyes, uncorking our deaf ears, and making the stammering dumb tongue that used to speak ignorance speak knowledge and wisdom is proof positive that Jesus is not just some historical person from the past, that this enemy has our poor brothers and sisters sitting around waiting on a man from 2,000 years to come back.
Come on.
When Jesus said that there was one coming to fulfill what he taught, what he set up. And we are in that modern time. There's no cut cards. It is straight, no chaser. It is very clear that Minister Farrakhan has and is performing the actual works of Jesus and all of the prophets. Thus, he's bigger than a prophet to us. He's the master of prophets. And if you don't like that, then I would say either get out of our way or empty and divest your hearts and minds of that type of ignorance and pay attention and come and eat and drink what we've been eating and drinking that has now prolonged our physical lives as well as our spiritual lives and giving us vision and progression for future generations to come.
Allahu Akbar. Well, there you have it, family. We want to invite you out cordially this Sunday. The doors open at 10:30 a.m. The program starts promptly at 11 a.m., where you can come and hear the brother right here who represents the Nation of Islam and our dear beloved brother, not brother student, but minister, pardon me. He's not even a student.
He's a student of the Honorable
He's a student
Elijah
of
Muhammad.
those above us as little baby students. But come out and hear what Brother Carlos has to say. And brother, how can we reach you?
Well, you can follow us at NOI Archives on Instagram, and you can follow me at Carlos Muhammad, the number 1 on Twitter. And if you want to email and ask any questions of us historically, you can hit me at carlosmuhammad@gmail.com.
Allahu Akbar. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Assalamu
you.
alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Everybody singing this sweet praise. Sing this melody.